and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kayla Klufis, and I'll be your moderator. I work at Enterprise Knowledge, and I'm excited to be moderating this session today. Before I hand over the mic to Joe and Stephon, I have a few housekeeping items to cover about this presentation and the GoToWebinar platform. Please note that all participant lines have been muted, but we would still love to hear from you during today's presentation. If you do have a question for our speakers, feel free to send it through the chat tab on the GoToWebinar control panel or by tweeting us at EK Consulting. We'll be answering any questions at the end of this session. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up afterwards. Also, today's webinar will be available on demand within 24 hours after the live session via our website. We will send an email with the link following the conclusion of the webinar. Please feel free to share this link with anyone you think would be interested. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce today's speakers, Joe Hilger and Stephon Harris. On to you, Joe.
Thank you, Kayla, and welcome everyone this afternoon to our discussion about improving the search experience. Stephon and I are going to spend some time sharing really our experience in search and the journey that you can all take to create a better search experience for your users. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Joe Hilger. I'm a principal consultant at Enterprise Knowledge and also one of the co-founders. I've been working in this space for, it says 20 years, it's actually longer. The last 13 or so has been specifically with search and search-related technologies. So this is really an area of passion for me. And over that time, I've worked on, at this point, well over 100 different search projects for companies around the world, as far as, in Europe, in Middle East, all over the United States, and in many different industries. And really what we're talking about here today is a compilation of a lot of the experiences I've had as I've walked into different organizations that said search doesn't work. So excited to share some of our learnings with you. Stephon?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Hey everyone, I'm a senior developer at Enterprise Knowledge. I've had the pleasure of working on search over the last 5 years and being able to work with various different Fortune 500 organizations and nonprofit agencies or governmental agencies as well, to be able to really understand and articulate what are the experiences that they are trying to create for their users in search, and really try and navigate how do they prioritize those things. And that's been a lot of fun, a lot of learning, and kind of like Joe mentioned, being able to work with so many different organizations has brought a wealth of experience and understanding to our capabilities and our knowledge of search. So I'm going to pass it back off to Joe to start our presentation.
Thanks, Stephon. And everyone, Stephon has a great deal of experience with this. He's written some recent blogs talking about relevancy and other key search features. I think you'll all enjoy them. So he probably brings more to this table than I do, which is fun. So without fail, we walk into organizations who are struggling with search. And typically, the answer we get is really at the bottom of the mountain here. It's the start of that journey. We say, search isn't working, what's wrong? And the answer is always, I can't find anything on our company in our search. Nothing. I can't find the information I need to do my job. It's not there at all, right? In some cases, some organizations have just given up at some point and said, well, we don't have an enterprise search. There is no search, or there's search of different applications, but we don't have a main search, right? Other organizations have tried, but failed. They've bought the latest software. They've said, this is the trick. This will get us over the hill, right? Which may be a mountain, as they find out. And they just don't get there. And then what we've noticed is there are companies that have started to really think about search, maybe even gotten some consultants that know something about it, and it gets a little better. They've fixed search. They tried once, they failed, now they've made it better. And they're, maybe halfway up the mountain, right? Search is getting better, but it still doesn't let us find what we want. At the end of the day, what we're really aiming for is almost silence. Search should be that place where people naturally go to find the information they need. They don't think about it, they just do it. So it becomes, in some ways, forgotten because it's so trusted and so reliable, right? When we want to find information, you don't think twice about going to Google and just go find that information, right? How many of you have a search within your organization that has that same type of experience? How many of you have that place where you can go to find exactly what you need in a trusted and safe manner and say, that's what I needed, and you can get your job done? Right? In my experience, very few organizations have that. What we're going to talk about today is how to get there. So let's talk about that journey next. When we're fixing search, and don't align these with what you saw before, this is our journey of how we fix search. We like to break it into 3 steps. That first and foundational step is creating what we call action-oriented search. And that's really about understanding that when someone's searching for information, they're searching because they have a job to do. And what we have to do, what our job as people fixing that search environment is, we have to understand not how to help them find information, but how to help them get the information they need to do their job, right? Once we've gotten that information available and useful, now we've got the foundation of something that can be really, really helpful. The next step is to move on and make sure it's relevant. How many times have we heard, yeah, there's some good stuff here, but it's always at the bottom, or it's 2 pages down and I can't find it? So after I talk about action-oriented search, Stephon's going to really start to dive into some of the key things that you can do to start fixing the relevancy of search. Get those search order and search signals in place so that people find what they want and know they did. Lastly, at the end of this, we're going to talk about next-gen search. And really what this is about is starting to apply some of the latest technologies, things like machine learning, knowledge graphs, artificial intelligence, to create search experiences that are way beyond what people expect from their company, but search experiences that people are accustomed to on things like their phone, their home appliances, etc. So we're going to walk you through all 3 levels of this during our discussion today. And as you leave, I hope you can see where you are and maybe a pathway to fix what you have and get to that really exceptional next generation search environment. So let's get started. What does everyone think of this search? We grabbed this because we were just so excited about this, right? It's got every feature in the world. Look at this, it's all there, everything's there. Yeah, no. Too often people are sold, if I just add the latest whiz-bang feature, search will find everything, right? The reality is when you're working with someone, at the very beginning, they're frustrated, they're lost. If the first thing you show them is this, what you see on your screen, they're not unlost. They're not unfrustrated, right? Let's start with, okay, it's time to search. Where do I search? Well, over on the left-hand side, there's this thing that says find under departments. Maybe that's it. Oh, wait, no, there's something up top. So that's probably it, but there's a drop down there. Oh no, it says search in the middle. So I probably go here, right? So I'm a user who's frustrated, focused on my job, and I just want to find something. How's that for a nice, easy start? I don't even know where to start, right? Now let's look at let's dive into this a little further, into this search experience.
And to add to your point, that sometimes users, when they encounter search experiences that overwhelm them, they'll outright reject the search at all and rather go and seek out alternative ways, whether that means go and talk to coworkers, or they will abandon the search completely, even if it may be for something really precise to what they're looking for. but having a search experience where it's overwhelming and it doesn't lead users to a clear idea of where they're going, it can be a complete turnoff for users.
Yeah. So let's look at the screen a little deeper. And, we've all heard facets. Faceting solves search. And in many ways, that's true. A well-designed faceted search, like the Amazon experience we all talk about, can make a real difference of helping people quickly find the information they need. This is not the Amazon experience. We've got facets on the left, but we've also got categories in the middle, and they kind of line up, do they or don't they, right? Again, more noise. What we're showing here is just too much. We've created an experience that's overwhelming and that causes you to be unsure of what you're doing. So you started this psychologically unsure of what you're doing because you didn't have the information you needed, and we've successfully reinforced that unsuredness and said, yeah, we're going to make it worse for you. You don't know where facets are. You don't know what that experience is. We're just going to make it more complex. So let's pop in and take another look even at the results themselves. So I love the idea of some level of iconography or some pictures to help designate different types of search results. It's a great way to make search stand out and make it so that people can quickly browse and understand what they're looking at. That is not what we see here, though. Right up front, in the first three search results we're looking at, we've got icons that aren't even consistently placed, right? We've got this, I don't know if it's a surfboard or if it's an upside down, ironing board, but it's on the first search result, it's in the middle. On the third one, it's on the right. Now I get to the next set of results and there's some random number here. Okay, it's, based on the category, maybe it's a project number. None of this makes sense. So the user isn't just trying to find what they're looking for. They're trying to figure out what they're seeing. That does not support action. It does not support helping people be successful. Frankly, all it does is support confusion. But we've thrown a lot of information at users. People think sometimes this is enough. And the reality is this isn't. This isn't going to get you where you want to go. So let's start talking about maybe some better options. Picked a topic today which is complex, but one that's obviously very much on everyone's mind, which is the coronavirus and where things are. And Google, who lives and breathes search and thinks about it all the time, I spent a lot of time saying, how can we create a search experience that isn't overwhelming, that allows us to see the information we need to see? And so if you go Google coronavirus maps today, you're going to get a couple things right up front. Front and center are 3 trusted sources for maps, right? These are well-known, identified maps that you can click on and go see. And they've been prioritized because Google has decided these are trusted sources. Johns Hopkins, CDC, New York Times. These are people that are known entities for which you can trust what's out there, because you can't trust everything, right? So this is important. Then on the right-hand side in the knowledge panel, which is something Google's really been pushing hard, they're actually showing their version of the map. So I want to see the map. I don't have to leave search to see the map. I've already got it. How powerful is that? I'm not just giving you a link to go somewhere else to go do research and start over. I'm showing you exactly what you want to see right up front. And then you can see on the left-hand side, we're starting to categorize what information there is here. So they're giving you not just a long list of results, but some guidance on what to look for and what to see. So trusted sources, information at your fingertips and actionable, and then a clean, simple experience so that you can quickly understand what you want to see, right? Now let's dive a little deeper into this. Go ahead, Stephon.
just to add to that, Joe, quickly, what users feel immediately is that this search gets me. They feel a sense that they're not overwhelmed, or that this search is going to be something that they have to dig through. They get a clear feeling of, I've got something I can work with here, and this is going to lead me to some answers, some clues, some context in which I need.
Yeah, so it gets you. It's a connected search experience, right? So as you scroll down the page a little bit more, they start to show you even more information. So if I'm looking for a map, well, what next do I care about, right? And Google's said, well, if I'm looking for a map, I probably care about the data behind that map. So right beneath that, you can quickly filter and see results, case results by state. You'll see right here in the middle, I can change from Virginia to whichever state. I happen to live in Virginia, so that's what I care about, right? So now all of a sudden, again, I'm not leaving the search experience, but I'm able to take action and react to what I see. On the right-hand side, I also get some perspective. Here's the world, here's the United States, and here's Virginia and how it fits in. So I can start to see, how do I fit in the larger picture of information, right? So not only did I get a map, but Google understood that I want to know what's behind it and how to work with it. And it didn't ask me to leave that environment, that experience, right? It just, Stephon's shaking his head. This is helpful. This really gets you what you want and not just swings back a bunch of links.
Just to add even more to that, what is great what Google does here is that it takes information that the user sends in implicitly with their browser data and their location of where they are, and it's able to detect, okay, this user is in Virginia, let's show them relevant data to Virginia, without having the user to do the additional step of selecting what state they're in and then being able to parse through that information. It just cuts down on some extra steps and provides the user with a clear idea of how is this information relevant to you.
Now, as we scroll down even further, and this is, of course, something, and I've spent time here, I'm sure all of us have looked at this information. I can start to see within my state, again, I'm drilling down, but this is still a search experience. Within my state, which counties are most affected? As we all know, different counties have different density and different problems here. And you can see I live in Fairfax County. Lucky me, I'm in one of the bigger ones, right? Stephon, you're in a much better place for that, so good for you. But again, more information, but then it's also thoughtful. If you look on the right-hand side here, they're actually talking about what is it, how do you understand it. That may be something you could scan over, but Google's thought about this and said, I'm going to paint a picture that doesn't just give you information, but also educates you, so that if you want to learn and understand what's happening, you can. There's a term out there called lazy searchers, and it came from the fact that when the internet first came out, we thought, oh, when everyone has the same level of access to information, and we were getting good at that, all of that political infighting, all of those battles would go away because we'd all be looking at the same stuff. Unfortunately, what we learned through what they now call lazy searching is social scientists started to learn that people search for information that really reinforces what they want to know, right? Or what they're looking for. So I will search for stuff that reinforces my opinions on things. So instead of giving us broader perspectives, we get more narrow in our opinions because you can always find someone that agrees with you, right? Google has said, I'm going to discourage lazy searching, so I'm going to try to continue to educate and get people as much information as I can. Now let's apply that to your company intranet or your company search, right? You want to bring back the information people need, right, or are asking for, but at the same time, you also want to think about, as you do this, what information is relevant to them that I should make sure they're aware of that they may not have thought to ask for. And we do spend time when we think about creating that search experience, coming up with ways to not just give you what you asked for, but give you what you need and what I as a company want to make sure you're equipped with. So this is an example of Google doing it. This same thing should happen in your company, and you should be thinking about designing your search so that it's pushing that type of information at users in a unobtrusive way, right? This is on the side. It's not something that feels like it's in someone's way. It actually feels helpful. Great. The last piece of this is, and it's kind of shocking when you look at this, this is the rest of the search page, right? And what do you see? You see the classic links and text. And then at the bottom, some of the common searches and guidance. And this was important to show because I've had customers where we started to teach them about building action-oriented search results and the value of building these dynamic results or results that at least allow you to take action. And I think a few of them have said, oh, those are great, but I can't do it for my whole company. I can't. There's too much stuff here. And the message is you don't have to, right? Google does 2 or 3 different types of results here and says, these are the important ones. These are the ones that sit up top, and these are the ones that make the difference. And then after that, here comes the rest, right? And that's okay. People get that powerful experience. And what we've talked about with our customers is, as you're building this out, as you're building your search journey, build what we call these action-oriented search results. Build the first 3 to 5 to start, and then add some, maybe 1 or 2 a quarter. If you don't have that big a budget, maybe 1 or 2 a year, right? Find the things that people are most frequently searching for. Figure out what it is they want to do with it. And then create a search result that actually allows them to do that. Doesn't mean it's just a link to a piece of content, right? Take it further. And then, one of the last things I want to talk about here before we move on from this page is Google also said, I want to hold your hand and help you get to the result. So it's possible that what you searched for isn't exactly what you wanted. So Google spent some time looking at other search queries, right, where it saw activity that suggested success, and said, here are other common searches that you may want to do. This is your classic recommender, but and not always hard to do. It's hard to do well. We can talk about how to do it, but it can be done. And now all of a sudden, you're not just forcing people to live with what they searched for, because they might have searched for something in a way they think about it, but not in a way that you thought they would think about it. So these common searches can help you guide them in the right direction, right? And this gives you those credible links, then some guidance to go there. So people never feel like their search was in vain, right? Google's spent a lot of time saying, I want to make a difference and give you an experience that's helpful.
And just to add to that, because Google does spend a lot of time creating a wonderful experience, it in itself becomes a trusted source, and not just the resources that it links out to, but people come to know that whenever I'm looking for something, maybe I'm not able to articulate it in the right way, but utilizing Google can provide me either similar searches or provide me more terms that will help me articulate my search in the way that I'm looking for. And that in itself, as it's applied to different enterprises and organizations, really starts to build trust within the search teams within organizations, that the users know that this is the place that I know I can come to. Even if I don't get the exact results I'm expecting, then I know that I can trust the search to lead me and guide me in shaping what I'm searching for.
Yeah. So to wrap up that first platform, action-oriented search, that first step on our search journey, clean up search. Don't deliver the UI we showed you up front. You won't get one from us, I can assure you, because we would never do that. But I bet if you go look at yours, you'll see that kind of chaos. It's pretty common to see that. Get rid of the things that shouldn't be there. The next thing is think about your story. What are people searching for and what do they care about? You have information, much more than you think. Search is not a black box. Top 20 search terms, that tells me. Based on my system, we worked with a vendor that was doing a large intranet, and they knew what people were looking for. In fact, for them, I will tell you this, the cafeteria menu was the #1 thing people wanted to see, right? But they searched for it, so let's make sure that experience gives them that, right? Let's think about that story and really creating an environment. Search is not just a list of links, because if you do that, you're lost. And then lastly, make sure that your search is action oriented. If you're just giving back flat results, even with great metadata around it, if you don't help them with what people want to do, you're really not fixing search. And I'll share a quick story, because what you saw, what we showed you with Google can look pretty hard. But I want to tell a story about an organization I worked with. It was an organization that was with the federal government, and they were actively involved with the Head Start initiatives. And one of the types of search results that we had identified was the conferences that they host. And you know, we all got in a room and we said, okay, action-oriented search, we've got these conferences. And I said, well, what do you want someone to do when they see the conference in your search? And they said, well, we want them to register. I said, okay, so let's add a register button to the search result, right? That was the simplest thing in the world. It was just a mindset change. You wouldn't believe, the next hour, we got 5 more people added to the meeting, and the next hour, 5 more after that, because of such quote unquote brilliant ideas that were coming out of this. The brilliant idea was, let's add a register button. It wasn't really that smart. But it was the way we thought about it. It's the way we thought about the user and the way we thought about action-oriented search that made that happen. So I'm going to finish this up and now pass it on to Stephon, who's going to talk about relevancy, which is, I'm sure, a thorn in everyone who does search's side, and he's got some great answers here. Take over, Stephon.
So because it's near lunch hour and I'm sure food is probably on your mind, I'm going to entice you a little bit more by talking about chocolate chip cookies, everyone's favorite. So let's just look at a very basic search result in this mock-up. You see that we've got some query terms of chocolate chip cookies, and we've got 3 results shown here. Doesn't tell us much at all. If users encounter this, they're like, okay, I'm sure this has something to do with baking cookies, but maybe they're not clear on exactly what this means. The next step that we've seen a lot of teams and search engineers do is start to add metadata, add this abstracts to search so that when users see results, they get snippets of text and they're able to kind of build out more context of how this information is relevant, maybe where is it coming from, and kind of like what Joe talked about earlier, that users utilize a ranking of search pages to start to build a context around what is the information that they can get out of this search application. And that leads us directly to some questions that a lot of search teams can utilize to start to evaluate how their information is presented and what to do with this information. The thing that we often talk with teams about is consulting their users for feedback and starting to understand and articulate what are their needs there, and then how do they design the results to be able to speak to those needs. And not only in just the action-oriented, but also in understanding when users search, we have gotten into the ingrained notion that the top 5 to 10 results should be highly relevant to what we're looking for. Users don't want to spend hours clicking pages after pages trying to search the results, and so there's a priority of making sure that those first couple of results that are returned to users are relevant to what they're searching for. So if a team was able to understand their search a little bit more, they could probably come up with some quality result types of a search like this. For example, the first post they could label as a social media post. It's about a particular family sharing some of recipes that they're creating while in quarantine. The second one could be an actual recipe related to chocolate chip cookies. And the third is probably an ad about chocolate chip cookies. Each of these types of results have their own priority when it comes to how we rank them. And then understanding this priority as it relates to both the user's needs and the business's needs helps properly rank and prioritize this information in our search application.
So, Stephon, are you telling us that priority and type of search result is a better way to get to answers than counts the number of times the word appears in a document?
Yeah.
For those that aren't knee deep in for those that aren't knee deep in search, often your out of the box search engines are basically calculating relevancy based on how many times that word appears in a document. That isn't really how people search for it. What Stephon's showing is people care about the type of information and sort it that way, and it's a much better relevancy experience. I love that. So I will let you continue on.
That's exactly right, though. I think a lot of people expect it to just kind of work like Google, we've heard a lot, or be able to work in a way in which it just feels magical. And that's not very relevant for a lot of out-of-the-box experiences. And people need to know that there's a lot of thought and prioritization that needs to be given into how they want to rank and how they want to prioritize what the user is desiring, as well as what does the business need out of search. So a couple of ways that we can improve search relevancy is through increasing our signals and improving our ranking function. So the signal modeling of your search is the ability to shape the fields that make up your documents so that they provide relevant measures to what a user is looking for. In our example here, one way we could improve the signals in our example is to have the term choco be a synonym for chocolate, so that the results that match the term choco will be surfaced just like when a user is typing in chocolate. The other tool, the ranking function, is the query algorithm used to rank how relevant results are to our search priorities. And remember that our search priorities are a balance between what is the user trying to accomplish with this search, with what is the business trying to provide, and how do we articulate the business needs of search. So if we reshaped our results again, we can utilize our ranking function to begin to prioritize our results in a way that finds that balance. So for example, in here, we've moved our result type that look like an ad up to the top so that users are able to encounter that. And if they've got chocolate chips on the brain, well, maybe they probably don't want to spend 30 minutes, an hour trying to bake a cookie. Maybe they just want to buy some cookies right now. And so prioritizing that as the ability for the user allows them to take that action, allows us to do the things that maybe we want to do as a business, as by being able to connect people who are selling chocolate chip cookies with those who are wanting them. What we also be able to do was to able to understand that when a user enters in terms like chocolate chip cookies, they're probably looking for a recipe. And so providing not only recipes that are relevant, but being able to put in context around how long would it take to cook the recipe for cookies, out of the number of people who have voted for it, what's the rating of it, and how many people voted for it, how many calories are in these cookies. That provides a whole level of context that users can use to enrich their decision and be able to make more well-informed options and decisions with that information. And then as well, you see here, we've been able to re-rank by including our social media posts, still inside of our result types, but maybe not prioritized as high as our ads or recipes, and able to still give information that's clear, concise, and relevant to our users. So as teams start to begin to articulate how do they improve search, I think that a great process that they should do is start to evaluating how those two tools, signal modeling and ranking function, can play a role inside their organizations. When we look at signal modeling, it's asking the type of questions of like, what kind of content are we showing our users? How do we define it? And then how are we able to include signals that are relevant to it? What kind of metadata do we have that we've captured? How does it articulate what the user is looking for, as well as what this content actually is? And then when it comes to the ranking function, it's again prioritizing how do we balance our users' needs with the business needs when we show results. So thinking about, do we need to prioritize ads? Do we need to prioritize certain content types or result types that are highly relevant to our users? And then what is the ranking which they should be returned to the user? And then most importantly is like, do you understand what the user is looking for? Showing them a whole bunch of social media posts when it's, 3 o'clock on a Sunday and they just really want to bake chocolate chip cookies could kind of upset your users. And it's better to really try to articulate what they're searching for and be able to provide them with those relevant information. So when looking at search for relevancy, here's 3 strategies that we have found to be really impactful. The first is to analyze, looking at the signals that you have in your content and start to understand how do you present and utilize those signals, from metadata to abstracts to different types of fields, to present to users in a way that is relevant and is going to get them to the results that they want to see. The second is to think through how do you want to prioritize your ranking of results in a way that, again, balances the business needs along with what are the users looking for. And then most importantly here, listen to your users, take in the feedback of what they say. When they say search is getting better, but we still have a couple of ways, listen to that but we still have, and think about how can you incorporate those areas in which you can start to help search improve into your overall goals of search. So I'm going to pass it back on to Joe to kind of talk about the last section we have here, our next generation of search.
Yeah, so we've taken you through really 2/3 of that search journey we showed up front. We talked about action-oriented search and creating results that allow people to be interactive and help them get their job done. Stephon has talked about how to improve relevancy and tools like signaling, et cetera, that can make things happen. Now what we're going to talk about is some of the cool stuff that everyone's asking for. Machine learning, knowledge graphs, artificial intelligence. And you'll notice artificial intelligence isn't listed here. It's because artificial intelligence is really built on top of machine learning and knowledge graphs in this space. So these things, these capabilities, which are really, in many ways, a lot of this is newer in the past few years to where it's workable, are the ones that can take your search from these plain search results we talk about to that phone experience that we want to get you to. So Stephon's going to jump in and talk a little bit about machine learning and how it can be applied to fix search results, and then I'm going to walk you through knowledge graphs and what we'll do with some of that. Stephon, take us to machine learning.
Yeah. So as teams start to continue on their search journey, they start to develop a repeatable process of listening to their users, tweaking search, and then testing their search. And at this stage, they are really beginning to codify a process of how their search can continuously be improved. I think we jokingly call this the silent stage, because search is at a point where teams can start to observe the user behavior that they have, and then before a user even articulates to them that, hey, this is really upsetting me about search, they're able to understand the patterns that are going on and be able to respond appropriately to ways in which their search can better be improved and support the user's decisions there. So one way search is evolving is using machine learning. And machine learning is really a tool to help automate some processes in classifying results, tweaking the ranking function of search, as well as testing different models of search. Two ways in which machine learning has really helped lately improve search is one is through search logs. And search logs are basically the history of your users' queries and clicks. And teams have enabled this search history along with machine learning to turn your search logs into tags for their content. So teams are able to use the terms that are entered and be able to use that information to be applied to different types of content. So say, for example, if you're searching for an address book and you find that the first couple of results are really relevant to that, then your company can utilize that search history and that query terms as a vote and representation of that this information is the content type that was returned and you clicked on is relevant as an address book for a user. And as those clicks begin to accumulate and aggregate, the teams can use that data to provide a confidence ratio on how related a specific tag is to a piece of content that's there. This is incredibly powerful in leading users to find relevant content without doing processes that don't scale. We recognize that going to manually try to classify millions of pieces of content just is not scalable. And no matter how many taxonomists or people you may have, sometimes the volume of search results or documents that you may have is just too much in order for one person to manually classify or people to manually classify. And so utilizing machine learning and the modeling of search logs and how they apply to results is one way to help automate that process of classifying the results and the content that you have. A second option that I want to talk about is utilizing machine learning to improve the ranking function. And one way specifically is through the learning to rank model of machine learning. And learning to rank is basically a set of machine learning tools that help model out a ranking function using training data, which is basically a table of the queries that users are entering, the matching documents in which results from that query, as well as a relevancy score to how relevant those documents are to the query terms that were entered. And utilizing this training data, teams can be able to process out how to develop an algorithm, a function that will better determine how precise a result is to its query terms. And this provides more of a relevant measure for getting back documents that relate to what the users are looking for, which is, again, the ultimate goal is to provide the user back with what they want. And one way we can do that is by utilizing machine learning to help automate that process and speed up that testing of our ranking functions to be able to provide results that are better, more aligned, more precise, and more relevant to what users are expecting. So what other ways that a lot of teams are beginning to utilize modern technology is through knowledge graphs. And that's something that we have definitely had experience in, and something that we just really enjoy talking about and discovering the possibilities with knowledge graphs. And as just kind of a basic explanation, knowledge graphs help provide a context through a network of relationships and entities. It's turning strings into things and being able to use that information to provide all types of context around information within a particular domain within an organization. Well, we see that being super powerful in search two ways. One, being able to expand out search so that terms that user enters are able to be represented by more things that provide context. For example, if we had a knowledge graph that included the term chocolate chip, well, there may also be an entity that's related to it called Toll House, a very popular brand of chocolate chips that exists. When a user enters in a term like chocolate chip, the knowledge graph could be used to articulate, well, here are some other relevant terms, and we see that Toll House is there. Well, let's also search for things for Toll House and provide those results back to users. That way, they're able to kind of further flesh out what are the terms, what are the relevant concepts that exist with the search term that the user enters. The second way is being able to disambiguate what is the user really looking for here. So if we know, for example, that users are looking for chocolate chip cookies and they just entered in the term chip, well, a chip could be a computer processing thing, it could be a paint swatch, it could be a lot of different things. So using context in which a user may have previously searched for, or they have given us other signals to help us include relevancy, we can start to articulate that what chip may actually signal is something more like an edible thing than maybe a piece of hardware. And knowledge graphs help provide that disambiguation by understanding the relationships between different entities and how that can be supported and differentiated from other realms of information when they may sound alike, they may have the same spelling. So now I'm going to pass it back to Joe to talk a little bit more about knowledge graphs and how it helps translate human understanding into machine knowledge.
Yeah, and Stephon talked about how you can really build on that knowledge graph you've built. But there's even more. And I like to use the example for each of these. I'm going to paint some pictures. We have a knowledge graph at our company that allows us to understand what we're doing. And in that, as you can imagine, we're a consulting firm. So we have clients and information about clients. Well, where do you get that from? Likely from your from a sales force or et cetera, right? So your sales engine. We have information about projects, and that comes from a couple of places. The project's defined up front, but then the delivery of the project, who's involved, et cetera, might come from your time and billing system, right? So I know that Stephon and I are on this project because we billed to this project. Shocking. And then there's other information like, who is Stephon? What does he do? What documents did he create? What we've found is a knowledge graph is a great way to pull together this information. Show me a single picture of a client, right? The projects that we've done for them, information about their industry. Show me what Stephon's done. Who's he worked with? What projects has he been on? What documents has he created, right? These are all relationships. By pulling these together in an aggregated form, not only can you create new and dynamic search results, i.e., not that same old document result type, right? But you can also create aggregator pages that are dynamically generated to show you all the information you need on a topic, right? Really important. Next up is inference and the ability to use relationships. And I'll tell you a story. We were working with a large NGO that was doing projects around the world. And they wanted to be smarter about the projects they were doing. And to be smarter about it, maybe they were funding a project about building bridges in South America. And the bridge building, they had a whole lot of documentation and information about bridge building they had done in Colombia. And someone was about to build a bridge in Venezuela. Now, those countries are very different, as we all know, but they're about the same distance from the equator. Their environments are in many ways similar, right? So while the country's different, an attribute about those countries is similar. So that bridge building project in Venezuela may have very similar challenges from an environmental standpoint as the bridge building project in Colombia. And the neat thing about a knowledge graph is it can make that leap and say, yes, these aren't the same countries, but there are some aspects about them that are similar. And lastly, the other thing you can do with knowledge graphs, and this is fun, and this is where the phone comes back into the story, right? Your phone search is graph databases. They're called triple stores, and they're called that for a reason. It's because they store three pieces of information: the subject, the predicate, the object. And wow, that sounds like a sentence, doesn't it? That subject might be Joe Hilger. The predicate is works on. The object, project with the European Central Bank, or Travelers Insurance, or PricewaterhouseCoopers, or NASA. That'd be kind of neat. Stephon gets to do that, not me. But anyway, I'm capturing those three pieces of information. And it's amazing how if you store that information in the way that you ask for it, the ability to start to create natural language queries is that much easier. And if you're wondering if that's true, first of all, we've done it, but let's take it a step further. I got a call from someone that was working at Amazon. They were an ontologist who worked with knowledge graphs, and I was thrilled because there weren't a lot of those people. And as I talked to her, I said, "What's your knowledge graph? What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, well, what I'm doing is I'm the knowledge graph behind Alexa. That's how we answer those questions." That's how I found out that Alexa was using a knowledge graph, right? So this is a really powerful way using a knowledge graph to take it to the next level so that people aren't just entering search terms, they're asking questions and getting answers. Really powerful. So let's move on. I know we've got a bunch of questions now. We'll wrap this up. Next generation search strategies, that last peak on the mountain, using machine learning to automate some of these processes to both understand your content and your users can allow you to do things at scale that you couldn't do before, right? Really neat. And then knowledge graphs themselves start to provide context and a place to store information that's so much better than what we had before. And so this is these are two powerful tools that can take your search from even that plain list of links to that action-oriented search, to that relevant search, to next generation, that really autonomous recommendation search engine that's really guiding and changing on the fly. This is where we want our customers to get, and this is where you can get. So action-oriented, relevant, next generation. That's what we wanted to take you through today. So we've got about 6 minutes left for questions, and we've got a bunch of questions. So I'm going to kind of read the questions, and actually I'll probably answer the first one, but then Stephon and I can go through these. So the first question is, what is the best approach to incorporate search into an organization's content taxonomy? And I love this. I'm actually going to turn that around. You have a wonderful content taxonomy. That should be incorporated into your search. The best faceted search experiences use taxonomies. A good corporate enterprise taxonomy allows you to take information from multiple various sources and categorize them in a consistent way that allows for natural searching, which, by the way, those are those facets on the left side of your search screen. Stephon, anything to add?
I think you hit it on the head when you talk about flipping it there, going from the taxonomy to the search and thinking about how do you use that to undergird your search experience.
Yeah, here's a fun one. Someone said, you mentioned that you have to consider the needs of the user and the needs of the business when determining search relevancy. But what do you do when user needs and business needs are in conflict? You go first, Stephon. I have some thoughts here, but that's a fun one.
That is a good one. I think one thing that we do really well here at EK is that we develop personas for our users when we are articulating and understanding the search experience. And we don't just do it for the users, but we articulate personas for the business as well, because both of those are priorities. So then being able to look at those personas together and then being able to come and be able to get different viewpoints on those starts to articulate out how important and how do you prioritize those things. that's definitely a tricky thing to have when they are seen at odds at each other. But there is usually a path forward when you're able to, one, be able to fully flesh out all the personas that exist within a organization search application, and then be able to prioritize them. And I think I'll clarify that when I say personas, it's the understanding of who's the user, what are they looking for, what kind of information may they already be aware of, and then what kind of information may they still be searching for.
Yeah, and I just to add quickly, I like to think of the push and the pull. If your search is constantly pushing information at people, i.e. the business is forcing it on them, your users won't come. If you noticed what Google did is they did push information, but they did it in certain areas. Even what Stephon showed is he said, oh, okay, the ad comes first, but that's obvious, right? We're used to that happening, that up top, right? Use your real estate wisely and you can get around that challenge. And I think that's important, setting that up. I think we have time for one more question. And it says, if our company has no standard taxonomy, are there public ones available for a specific market? Would it be easier for longer term and B2B to use the same taxonomy within a market? Well, there's a lot to this, and I want to jump into this. First of all, and I love the question, by the way. Taxonomies have many uses, one of which is to categorize information, one of which can be to help make information more findable. Those aren't the same things, right? So frequently, if you go by a public taxonomy and you say, oh, here's the standard one that the industry uses, do you think that uses the terms your team uses, your people uses, your customers use? Are they your terms? Probably not. Maybe, but not completely. That becomes someone else's search that you've pasted your information and someone else's pieces on. So there's real value, and it doesn't have to be hard. You just need someone who knows what they're doing in putting together a user-centric taxonomy that's specific to your organization to increase and improve findability. People are typically buying the public taxonomies for categorization or for sharing of information across industries, right? So the different industries can talk to each other. That's a B2B scenario. That's not a consumer or an individual to your organization. If you don't personalize it, you won't get it. You won't get that buy-in, right? Stephon, anything on that? Because there's a second piece to this before we jump in.
I was just that you see this happen so much in organizations in which they've already developed an internal taxonomy. It's called a folksonomy. It's that when somebody calls, it's when somebody calls that report the project inspection, somebody else calls it the guidelines. It's being able to synonymize and being able to understand that the way that people use language is often specific to a particular domain.
Yeah. Now, the second half of this is exciting, which is the idea of knowledge graphs and can you use the same taxonomy? And let's step this back. I would actually call it an ontology, which is a level above that, but it is a list for sharing publicly. And we've worked with a number of clients where they've said to us, could you help us build our ontology that can be shared through linked lists? And there's great technologies to do that so that we can distribute it publicly and create a standard for our industry. That allows them better e-commerce, et cetera. This is actually at a meta level been done by schema.org for Google and all the tech companies, but there's real value in that. That, however, is a little different than a taxonomy used to fuel your faceted search, but important and powerful. We are at 2. Actually, we're a minute over, so I apologize, but thank you all for attending. And we enjoyed sharing our experience with search, and I hope you got a lot out of it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Bye.